One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Our guest today is Samantha Huge. Samantha is the Director of Athletics at William & Mary. Greetings, Samantha. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ty. I'm looking forward to having a conversation.
Actually, this is 20 years in college athletics. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You have a varied background at a number of institutions, including some time as Special Assistant to the President at Delaware and experience with equity and inclusion and serving on multiple committees. So you've seen a lot of leadership. You've been in a number of leadership roles. And I always say that the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And one of the ways you have to do that is by making decisions with regard to personnel. And during the 2.5 years at William & Mary, you've had to make a number of hires of coaches and administrators. And when I was looking at the list of people who have come in since you've been there, I mean, there's a significant amount of change being there. Of course, change can be positive or not positive, I guess you would say. I wonder about your process for making decisions. Some of them probably tough when it comes to personnel within the athletics department.
You know, Ty, it's a cliche, but when one has one's values and you know what the values of the institution, the department, and the individuals that you serve, decisions become easier. Decisions are never easy, right? They're not, especially when they're difficult ones, especially when they're decisions that impact individuals' lives. And one always has to balance that with the decision that one is making for the betterment of the whole. You know, we keep the student athlete at the center of every decision we make. I was fortunate to have worked for some great leaders. You said that. And one of the things that they always modeled was core values and keeping the student athlete at the forefront of every decision. And when you do that, and when you do when you keep the well-being of the student athlete at the forefront, decision making isn't actually that difficult. Now, fallout's hard. And when you're you're not always the most popular person when you go to the grocery store, but thank goodness for grocery delivery these days, I guess, for a lot of folks. But I think for me, it's really that you said I've been in 20 years, and that's still it seems like it's been 20 sometimes, but it seems like it's been a moment. And having the opportunity to work for athletic directors like Ron Wellman and Bernard Muir and Eric Hyman, and the list goes on and on and on, of people that I've been able not only to work directly for, but to be influenced. You know, I would add Sandy Barber to that list, and Kevin White, and others who I've just really had the opportunity to see great leadership.
You took the job there summer 2017, taking over for someone who had been there for a while. So when you start changing personnel, you start affecting what people believe was the fabric of the culture, right? But you're hired to, basically take it to the next level. So how were a lot of the changes you've made received? I mean, we're talking staff, coaches, like across the board. When you look at the changes, I don't know if have you ever counted how many people you have hired since you've been there?
We did actually, because we had our all staff meeting, welcome back, yesterday, and as I was preparing for the meeting and looking at the new names to list, I went, oh wow, this is, I think since last August we have 47 new people in a department that's only about 120. But so we had a really fun exercise yesterday. Rather than me stand up there, I've often said, like Charlie Brown's teacher on the cartoon, and just read off a list. We did it in a really interactive way. I think I shocked some people because their expectation was that we were going to talk about, budget, and we were going to talk about all these things. And I just, what I told them, because you bring up a point, that we've had a lot of change in the 2 years since I've arrived. And with change comes excitement, but with change also comes, you're not working with the same people you were working with before. And in athletics, we spend so much time with each other that you feel that loss really greatly. Whether that person worked next to you or worked with you, that's a loss that our people were feeling, and I knew that. And so I got everybody up, and we went into the arena, and I said, okay, you find one person you don't know, because I'm not going to introduce all the new people, because that would get really boring. You're going to introduce each other. And so I said, if you can't find somebody that you don't know, know, then find someone you haven't had a conversation with in a while. And it took us, we did that for about 10 minutes, and then went back into our lecture room, and I said, okay, now we're just going to go through, and you're going to introduce the people you met with. And it was so fun, and we learned things about each other. And I just said, I told them, I said, guys, we've had a lot of change. It is now time for us to, we've got this new strategic plan about to drop. We've got these goals that we want to meet, but none of that's we're not going to be able to accomplish any of that if we don't care about each other and each other's success and really build this team. Just as coaches go into a locker room in the fall and 25% of their team is new. I mean, if you think about it, and same on a campus, every fall we have 25% new, at the very least, with new classes coming in. So it was really important that we begin to build our own team culture. And so I don't know if I answered that.
Well,
that was the question you asked me. Sometimes I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I get excited about talking about our team because it's just we've got an incredible group of people.
Well, and that's an important thing. And you mentioned, you did answer a little bit when you talk about you're making changes from people who had probably been there for a long time, right? Yes. And actually helping your staff to get excited about that. That's important.
So I was charged coming in the door. And I would say it's not, we say that often, let's take it to the next level. It really wasn't. It was about redefining excellence and a shift in philosophy from what this institution wanted athletics to be. And, the board charged me, the president who hired me, and then we had a new president come in a year later. I knew that taking the job. It was one of the things that we had talked about, as the board had talked about. I was grateful to be a part of the hiring process for our new president. She has certainly, she makes me look not competitive. It's pretty cool. She loves athletics. She was an athlete and a coach herself. But one of the things I was charged with is, hey, listen, we want athletics to help us raise the profile of this institution. At no time are we going to, a lot of people have asked, are you selling out? Absolutely not. Our major theme right now is that while we're sustaining our academic excellence, we're improving our student-athlete experience, strengthening our financial base, because we really want to lay the foundation for this competitive excellence that we're enhancing. And so for us, it's maintaining this really strong reputation academically, but then raising our competitive excellence to match that, all while keeping the student-athlete at the forefront.
You mentioned that you were charged with enhancing the profile of the university through athletics. That's how I interpreted what you said. Mm-hmm. And that was on the forefront. Not just let's come here and help us win programs. Let's enhance the university profile and use athletics to do it from the leaders of the university. I think that's a wonderful thing for them to use, put that wear that as a badge.
Let athletics
right?
be a part of it.
Exactly.
Obviously, and I often tell folks, I didn't pick that society was going to value sports over,
history,
elementary school.
Right,
Gosh,
exactly.
I wish they didn't. Trust me. Like, I wish that's where we were putting money.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not doing my job if I'm not maximizing our approach there. And so really our new, our president and our board have said, hey, what are the ways that athletics can bring positive light to this university? One of the first things we did was change our logo, and that was almost harder than any of the other changes we've done.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But the reason we did it was the brand equity for William and Mary is in that name. It's in William and Mary. And if you ask people, even internationally, they've heard of this institution because of how strong it is academically and because of the leaders it has graduated, several of whom were athletes. And so really tying the athletic department to the university was critically important to that as a first step to really begin to allow athletics to be a component of the university and in turn help the university raise its profile nationally.
Yeah, that's pretty astute of the president there. I wonder,
There's
tying
some
back
smart
to
people around here.
I wonder, tying back to personnel, since you've made so many changes, you have probably refined your process for identifying potential candidates for coaching positions, for administrative positions. Talk to me about your process for identifying talent.
I think it's different perhaps with each. It's a constant. It's one I learned from one of my former bosses, and it is you always have a bench, right? We tell our coaches the same thing. You're always recruiting. And it doesn't mean that we want people to leave, but if we are successful, and if an individual is doing their job very well at William & Mary, likely more in coaching, perhaps in administration, but I have an example right now of a non-coach who is because he is such a leader in his field, I have people coming after him, right? And I'm puffing my chest out because I'm like, yeah, we got somebody who the pros want or one of the really big schools want. And so for us, even when I make a hire, I've got to start thinking about who could replace this person. So identifying talent is really knowing people and utilizing your network, but also ensuring that your network understands what the values are of the individuals that you want to bring around your student athletes. One of the things that I will not compromise on is any individual who we are going to bring into the William & Mary Athletics Department, if they in some way are unable to articulate that their job is to be an educator first, and that our jobs are actually to, teach, mentor, and inspire young people to go live lives of impact. Now, you don't have to say it exactly like that, but if in some way they're not able to articulate that is the reason that they want to do this, I'm probably not very interested in them. X's and O's, those are really important, obviously, because winning is something that we are judged on. However, winning is an outcome. Winning is an outcome of putting a process in place that is ensuring that each step of the way we are doing what we are saying we're going to do. We're walking the talk, and that each person is dedicated to the same set of core values so that we are ensuring that we are preparing our student athletes for life after William & Mary.
Which is very important. And you kind of touched on the next question here is, once you hire somebody, how you help them understand the importance of evaluating themselves based on your expectations for their success. Some of it you said, right? They need to understand why they're there at William & Mary.
Mm-hmm. Well, it begins in the recruiting process of that position. And then it's, as we've moved through the last year of strategic planning and review, we have 6 specific goals. We have our core values, and each individual within the department will be evaluated on how they are executing on those values and those goals within their role. And so everything is tied back to that scorecard. Where do they need growth? And then it's on us as leadership to ensure that we are providing them with the tools necessary for growth. Professional development is critically important. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're sending people all over the country, but it means that we're doing in-services, or we're doing, we read a lot of, I hand out a lot of books around here, and we do exchanges of information. I encourage all of our people to have at least one mentee and mentor. And I have a mentor right now who's significantly younger than I am, because I'm trying to figure out the best way to lead a multi-generational workforce. And so it's important for me to understand how I motivate someone who perhaps is right out of college versus someone who has been in the profession for years. Those are different. That takes a skill set that can really differentiate between what those two folks need. It's not a one-size-fits-all any longer, and really having our leadership team understand that as well.
That's an interesting relationship there, right? You have a mentor who is fresh out of college or a couple years out of college who helps you understand. She's
finishing up her MBA here, so she was a student athlete, and I just said, I need, this is something. She actually came to me, and I said, I was going to come to you. Will you please mentor me? Because I do. I think I can learn. Listen, I try to learn something new every day. There is, one of the things that was modeled for me early in my career was the ability to, a dedication to consistent growth and consistent improvement. Lifelong learning is critically important, because if you get very stagnant, or if you are not open to change and development, then I use often, my team hears me say this a lot, but I'm not a great gardener. I have a few potted plants and whatnot, but one of the things that I talk about is if you purchase a potted plant at like a Lowe's that you want to transplant either into a larger pot or the ground, when you take it out of that plastic, oftentimes the roots are all wound up around it. And if you don't break those up before you put it in, it's going to get root bound and die. And that's how I've talked about the process we've just gone through is growth takes takes tearing to grow. A muscle requires you to tear it, to stretch it, to grow. And so we have to do the same thing as individuals. And I think it's critically important as leaders that we recognize that and be open to that as well.
You mentioned growth and you mentioned in-service and professional development and that you give out a lot of books. Can you give me a couple of 2 or 3 of the books that you've given out to your staff since you've been there?
I love right now the one I'm that is tattered, that is in my bag at all times because I'm constantly rereading it and getting quotes out of it, is Brene Brown's book Dare to Lead. It talks about courageous leadership, and that courageous leadership requires not only authenticity but requires vulnerability as a leader with your team. And so that one is a big one. Obviously, with our chancellor being Dr. Gates, I love the book Duty. And also his book, A Passion for Leadership. Those are 2. And then another one that I handed out last year was Kate Fagan's book, What Made Maddie Run. Mental health among students, mental health in general in our society is so critically important, but in particular our students and student athletes in this digital age of social media and everything looks perfect. We really need to be paying attention to ensure that that we can recognize the signs, and if we are not equipped, not everyone is, to address mental health issues, that we have the tool set and the people around us that we can point our student athletes towards. Gosh, there's so many great books out. There really are. I'm a big fan. I'm a big John Gordon fan also. I think that the Energy Bus is great. One of the first books of his that I read that I loved was The No Complaining Rule. So, I mean, I can go on and on books, believe me.
Well, I'll ask this last question, and then I'll let you go. I'm sure you have a big day planned ahead. When I look at the staff, coaching staff, and I look at the roster of people on your staff, there's a very diverse population, very diverse community, different races, different backgrounds. I mean, all over, men, women, everything. I wonder, why is that important to you, and has it proven to be beneficial in the last 2.5 years?
It is critically important. One of the things that I have always set out to do, whether it was when I led a compliance office or as an athletic director, I want someone on our team who represents our student athletes, whether it's how they look, their gender, their race, their background, because our jobs are to educate and empower and prepare the next generation for greatness. And if they're not able to look at one of us and say, wow, okay, I see that now, like I could be that, it's not effective. I think it's too early to say whether we've seen benefits from it, other than the fact that people are commenting on it, and that they're, for me, diversity and inclusion is not about checking a box. I want it to be part of our department's DNA, and I'm proud of our folks, because I think we really are getting to that point. We can get much better. We always can, but I'm really excited about the staff and the team that we've amassed, and that there's an energy in this department and an excitement. One of the things that I talk about is we are preparing leaders to go live lives of impact. But if we don't give them, and they're going out into a multicultural global society, right? That's what we're sending our students out into. And if we don't give them the experience while they're here of being around individuals who don't think, look, love, or pray like they do, when they go out into the big world, and that's the first time they experience maybe someone who's different and thinks differently than they do, and they've not had the opportunity to be around someone who does have a different background than they do, then I've not done my job as a leader. So, you can't have everything, but you certainly try to have folks who really are able to model, that. And I think we're getting there. We're making progress.
Which is excellent insight. I really appreciate you joining us here. This has been a great conversation. Thank you very much for being a guest.
Well, thanks for having me, Ty. I appreciate it very much.
That was Samantha Huge. She is the Director of Athletics at William & Mary. And of course, this is Ty Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.